Hello, I'm Jeffrey Peterson, AFA MEC President at Alaska Airlines. Today is Friday, August the 3rd, 2012. We just finished up 3 days of negotiations at the Alaska Airlines Flight Training Center in Seattle, Washington. We were very busy at this particular session. We discussed most of what we'll call the scheduling package, which is sections 8 through 12, and that includes hours of service, junior available, scheduling, reserve, and exchange of sequences. We also talked about the new hotel section. During this session, we signed a side letter of agreement that terminated the 2005 Seattle co-domicile agreement, which now converts the Portland co-domicile back to a full domicile effective yesterday, which was Thursday, August the 2nd. In Section 8, hours of service, the company opened on reducing the 30-minute debrief at domicile to 15 minutes. And this would have a number of consequences. For instance, it would allow mid-con turns to be built out of Seattle. So say the flight from Seattle to Chicago will just barely fit into a turn if you can cut the debrief at the end of the day by 15 minutes, which might seem like a good thing. However, it could lead to less layovers in the mid-con stations, as well as pulling some of the flying back to Seattle and potentially reducing flying out of some of the other bases. We do have some concerns about this, although there are some benefits. We're still weighing the pros and cons of each, and we'd like to hear from the membership what you all think about cutting the debrief at the end of your trip from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. And you can tell the negotiating committee by talking to your voice committee members or your voice chair, as well as you can always send information or send a request to the Alaska Airlines Negotiations Facebook page, and our MEC Voice Chair Adam Clary will forward that on to the negotiating committee. In Section 8, AFA will continue to propose longer RON rest, as well as greater restrictions on night flying, lower thresholds for over-duty pay, as well as clarifying when a flight attendant can be contactable. Moving into Section 9, junior available, we did TA that section this time. We have increased the JA pay from 1.5 times to 2.5 times your trip rate if you're J8, so that's a 150% increase. We're very proud of that improvement. We have also agreed that a flight attendant will no longer be able to choose compensatory day off if you're J8, so you would just get the straight 2.5 times pay if you are J8. However, that trip is still tradable like it is today, and that premium does follow the trade. So we think that at 2.5 times, even if you're J8, that very likely, if you want to get rid of it, I would think that that would be something that others would pick up potentially. Some of the other changes to this section include eliminating VJA, as we have already communicated in the past, and that will be substituted with premium open time. Premium open time has to be offered at a minimum of 1.5 times on your trip rate, and could potentially be increased. Once the premium has been offered or increased, it cannot be removed until it's either assigned or self-assigned to a reserve, or if you trade it to another flight attendant. And in that case, the premium on premium open time does not follow the trade. Section 10 scheduling, the management presented us with a very new and very different proposal for scheduling. Under the company's proposal, they would, so the positive side is that they would give us 7% of the lines could be built at 40 TFP. We have that provision currently that we have the low time line option, which management has not exercised in quite some time, and in this proposal they would offer a minimum of 7% of the lines in the base at the low time. However, on the flip side, management would require that everyone else fly somewhere between 78 up to 98 TFP, and they would have a 78 TFP floor. So that means that there would be a guarantee more or less for 78 TFP. If your line was built below that 78 TFP, the company will pay you at least 78. However, if your line is built above 78, you can only drop with open time down to 78 TFP. You can do as much trading as you want with another flight attendant, but you can only trade down to 78 TFP with open time. So if I was built to 78 and I picked up 10 TFP from another flight attendant, I would then be responsible for flying 88 TFP and could not trade below that with open time, and vice versa. So if I gave away 10 trips to someone else, then my requirement to fly would be reduced from 78 to 68. Clearly this is a very, very different system than we have today. The committee does have some concerns, clearly some grave concerns about this. Management did offer to potentially open up more days in open time as a result of this proposal. We're going to evaluate it, but this is again one of those other issues where we'd like to have the weigh-in from the membership. So if you have some thoughts about the 78 guarantee, then by all means please let us know through your voice committee, or you can email or message rather the Alaska Airlines Negotiations Facebook page, or contact the negotiating committee directly, and we'll pass on your concerns to management. Section 11, reserve, as you recall, that we scrapped our last proposal to management, that initial proposal. We have gotten together with the reserve committee chairs and since crafted a new proposal. We presented that proposal to management this time. In that proposal, we've retained the AM and PM lines like we have today, along with the 3 ER days and 1 conversion, so no change there. But we also open on several other, what we think are significant improvements. One of them is to set 1 less day on call, which is 17 days, rather than the current 18. And we also open on a low time line for reserves, where 10% of the reserve lines would be offered at 2 days less. So that'll be 15 days on call, rather than the 17 days that we're proposing for the regular reserves. No reserve will be forced to sit on the low time reserve line if they did not bid for it, but we do think that at 10% that those usually will probably fill up every month. We also propose that reserves are able to self-assign pairings out of open time before scheduling assigned trips, and they can also choose to self-notify if they have checked their lines in eMaestro, and thereby you wouldn't have to call in to confirm your trip assignment. We have redone the order of assignment list to allow a preferencing for a request for first out or last out, so kind of like a pass or fly option to a certain extent based on seniority. And we still have retained otherwise the LTFA with the idea that we're trying to balance out the flying amongst the reserves, keeping in mind that you can still self-assign, and that would, to a certain extent, not follow direct LTFA, but if you're being assigned, they'll follow an LTFA order, also taking into account the first out or last out preference if you have the same TFP or no TFP. Pay-wise, we're looking for incentive pay if a reserve breaks guarantee, as well as increased compensation for airport standby, and also an increase in the value of a reserve day. So we're looking for a maximum of 4 airport standbys in a month, and that you can sit airport standby up to 5 hours, so an increase of 1 hour, but also for 5 TFP. And the increase in the value of the reserve day, we're looking for 6 TFP guaranteed per day. Management hasn't responded to this proposal yet, although we expect a response next time. Management did verbally agree with us before we TA'd Section 9JA. They will discontinue the practice of placing trips on a reserves line and then pulling it back for VJA. So we want to eliminate the potential of having trips that are premium trips for the reserves, and then they'll think they might be flying something pretty nice, only to have it pulled back a short time later to be offered as VJA. In the new hotel section, we're only one issue shy of a TA. The issue continues to be the long and short layover requirement. Management is so far balking at having 2 different hotels. We think it's very clear after all the changes we've seen in the hotels in the last several months that we need to have a hotel in a downtown or downtown-like area for long layovers. We do not like to see any more erosion in our hotel, or the quality of our hotels around the system. So just keep in mind that between Boston and Honolulu and several others that could be in the making, we do not want to see that trend continue. So you may or may not know this, but following the conclusion of every negotiating session, we get together and review the comment cards sent to the chairs of the voice committee. You can find the negotiating committee's response to all of the comment cards, as well as a collection of them, on the Alaska Airlines Facebook page under the negotiations tab on the left, and they're marked as the comment card report. The next negotiation session is scheduled for September the 4th through the 6th, in just about a month. In the meantime, you can support the negotiating committee by wearing your AFA pin, and also be on the lookout for our new bracelets. They're the 4 bases, 1 voice bracelet that says 4 bases, 1 voice on one side and AFA Alaska on the other. Your voice committee will be distributing those in the very near future. Otherwise, you can check out the YouTube negotiations video update at the AFA Alaska Negotiations channel, and there's always the Alaska Airlines Negotiations Facebook page. And you can find us anytime on the web at www.alaskamec.org.